It's great to catch up again with the member for Flinders, Sam Telfer. How are you going?
Yes, very well. Always good to catch up.
Now, Sam, you're the Shadow Minister for Regional Population Growth. I'm still getting my head around that one. Aren't our netball teams struggling enough with women going offline having babies?
Well, it's certainly a challenge in our regions, making sure that, firstly, we've got population to make sustainable communities, and secondly, and probably most importantly, is that we've got the services within our communities to make them sustainable into the future, to make sure we get the basics right, get the foundations right, so we can really prosper as regions.
Speaking of the foundations and the basics, when it comes to housing, it seems like parts of your electorate, such as Streaky Bay, Ceduna, supposedly properly hotspots. Is that what you're picking up, that they're the places where people are maybe getting themselves a beach shack or making a sea change?
Certainly something we've seen over the last year or two especially, and I think it's reflective of what people's attitudes have been post-COVID or in the midst of COVID, making a higher value on lifestyle rather than other things in their lives. So it is something we've been seeing within Flinders and across our regions, is that there's an investment of outside money coming in. So it's people that are moving here, but it's also people that are investing in real estate and houses within our regions. But we need to make sure that we get those basics right, and we need to make sure that it's actually affordable for those that are living here. So we need to make sure that the streamline process as far as rentals go continues, because if we have a lower amount of rentals available, then it's more challenging to find housing for those people who actually want to live here. Yeah,
when it comes to that, and especially those on lower incomes that certainly can't afford or can't get a loan from a bank these days to buy their own home, is there an adequate amount of housing supply? Is there a role state government can play in making sure that that's a possibility?
Oh, there absolutely is a role that state government needs to be playing in making sure that the supply of housing, not just in the metropolitan area, but in our regions, is really kept up to scratch. So there's opportunities, I believe, for there to be incentives put in place. It doesn't need too much. It just needs to be signals to the market that we do have a government that is looking at people, encouraging people to be investing within our regions. So there's a few levers which state government have, a few levers which local government probably have to partner with state government. And also there's some of these things that we need to make sure that the federal government's involved in. So some of the incentives for builders to be looking outside the easy builds of the metropolitan area. It does cost more to build a house within our regions, and that's always going to be the case, but we shouldn't see an exponential rise in cost just because of the remoteness of a build.
Now, when it comes to, I guess, what the employment opportunities are in an electorate like yours with a diverse range, tourism is a big one. The Tourism Industry Council has been highlighting that whilst there are struggles, the numbers seem to be on the up. Is that the feedback you're getting, is that visitors are coming back in droves?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been myself over the last few days travelling around the Far West in particular, and making sure that I'm listening to communities and tourism operators. What I am hearing from tourism operators, especially in the Far West, is that we need to make sure that state government isn't actually putting more unnecessary hurdles and red tape in the way of business. We've got so many unique environmental experiences that we've got within our electorate, and we see examples of that. And I've been out on the whale cruises at Fowler's Bay. The EP cruises was an incredible experience. Things like that, people come thousands of kilometres to experience. We need to make sure, as a government, as decision makers, we're not making things harder for those businesses that are looking to give people that experience. And also, when people come, they spend their money within local communities. So we need to be encouraging it, not discouraging it.
Something that governments made harder were large events, but there was a reason called COVID-19 why that was hard in recent years, but they are also tourism draw cards as well, and there's a huge one in the EP Field Days coming up.
It's exciting to see the EP Field Days back at Cleve this year. We got to a point 2 years ago where they had to be cancelled, and that really was a discouragement for those that are involved in it. It's a massive undertaking to a Field Days event together, a 3-day event that's coming up next week. But to see it get to this point now, and there's a real air of excitement around our communities on the EP, and I think across regional South Australia, for these Field Days to be in place. I'm looking forward to being up there and catching up with people that you may not necessarily see except for every couple of years at the Field Days. So I'd encourage everyone to come along to Cleve next week, catch up with what's happening, not just as far as the agriculture scene goes, but community in general. There's experiences for everyone that are going to be there at the Field Days.
Yep, and I gather an opportunity opportunity to line yourself up as well and ask a few questions too.
Absolutely. I'll be wandering around and making myself available as we go. And like I said, there's going to be conversations that are wide-ranging, and I'm looking forward to catching up with as many people as possible next week.
Now, just lastly, one of the hot topics that does keep coming up, and I know you're close to it, as is the former member for Flinders, Peter Treloar, is the issue of water supply, desalination. Are we getting closer to a nomination of a site for where that might go?
Yeah, so the process for the selection of the site for the EP desal plant is getting towards the pointy end. The site selection committee, which the former Minister David Spears put together, has about 20 members of community, industry and leadership that are involved in that to make sure that the whole perspective of what we are needing in our water supply on the Eyre Peninsula, but also what potential impacts there might be, is taken into account when making a recommendation to the SA Water Board. So that process has been vigorous, and they've been going through a number of different meetings and making sure they're getting all the information together. It's getting towards the pointy end over this next week or so where that final recommendation is going to be made. And then it really is, the ball's going to be in the court of SA Water and the Minister and the government as a whole to make sure that they actually have enough funding in place to get this project up and make it so the Eyre Peninsula is actually in a sustainable position as far as water supply. Without a desal plant, then the water supply from the Ely Basin on the Eyre Peninsula is at risk of running out in just 2025, only a few years' time. So we really do need to get this right and get it moving as quickly as possible.
All right, Sam Telfer, on the subject of getting moving quickly as possible, we both better keep moving. Thanks very much for joining us today on Flow.
Always a pleasure.